Okay, now we will move to our next session because I think we just like 15 minutes exceeded. I would like to introduce the chair or the moderator of the next session, Professor Abdel Fattah from Muhammad Al Khamis or University in Morocco. Where is Professor Muhammad Abdel Fattah? Professor Abdel Fattah is a professor of sociology from, I think Muhammad Al Fatih is a leading university in Morocco. I don't want to be biased, but as far as I know, he's a well and distinguished scholar within Africa. And I think he speaks 3 or 4 languages, I think, which is a privilege we don't have. He is a well-known sociologist. He also directing a big dialogue within the African region and also within the university. And he will join by Dr. Angie Ben Hamid. Benji Ben Hamid, originally from Tunisia. She is in Bahrain. She worked for UAE Higher Education. So lots of everything. She studied in Sorbonne, so it's quite a big, lots of experience. So I will hand over to you, Professor Abdel Fattah and Dr. Angie for moderating the next session. So I'm going to unmute you and give you the share. Okay, Professor, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, dear Alam. Our 4th session, it's about language and social policy perspectives on higher education. We have, as you say, as moderator, our friend, Professor Angie Ben Hamid. It's from High College of Technology, College of Business. We have 3 speakers. Abdullah Al-Buraidi from Arabia Saudi, Youssef Zaghwani Omar from Libya, and also from Sudan, that we have our friend Abdul Raouf Muhammad Adam. Then we can begin with Abdullah Al-Buraidi. Abdullah Al-Buraidi is a professor, emeritus, professor of management and organization behavior from Qasim University from Saudi Arabia. And he's doing research in epistemology, sociology, language, politics, and sustainability. His main current practical projects are university strategy. And he talked for us about towards an integrated model to sustainable university, a case study of Qasim University. Abdullah Buraidi, you can have your speech.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Abdel Hafid. And I'd like to thank Professor Alam for this invitation. Actually, I would like to talk about our experiment.
Professor, if you don't mind, can you make it a big screen?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay. Is that okay now?
Now it's good.
Okay, good. Actually, in my presentation, I will be talking about our experiment in my university, which is Qasim University. Qasim is located, in the in the middle of Saudi Arabia. This region is known by dates, and it's really has a sort of sustainable advantage in farming and other sort of industrial activities as well. This presentation is entitled Towards an Integrated Model of the Sustainable University. Okay, this is the content. I will go through these very quickly. Okay, my friends, let us remind ourselves by this nice statement made by UNESCO. UNESCO speaks loudly, saying that with the world population of 7 billion people and limited natural resources, we as individuals and societies need to learn to live together sustainably. We need to take action responsibly based on the understanding that we do today can have implications on the lives of people and the planet in future. Education for Sustainable Development, which is ESD, empowers people to change the way they think and work towards a sustainable future. I do believe, my friends, that we do live in a selfish growth context. There is a missing balance. Why? Because we focus more on the present more than the future. We focus on economics more than the environment. And we focus on me more than we. So it's true to state that the present cogito is that I think selfishly, so I do exist. Actually, I'm trying to bring some sort of quick, philosophical and sociological descriptions, because these are enriching our thinking in this area of research and type of thinking. Main objectives of a sustainable university. Actually, we do believe that the sustainable university enables its colleges and staff to apply UN SDGs in their fields, and also enable mainstreaming sustainable development concepts and applications in education, research, social and economic context. Also enabling the university to have a leading role in determining sustainable development priorities in its local region, as well as enabling the local authority in determining a green investment roadmap, as well as enabling researchers in synchronizing applied research to meet the dynamic needs of sustainable development, and also to enabling the collaboration with excellence centers in sustainable development. And as you can see in this slide, that we actually have had so many conferences, international conferences, and international corporations. And in this picture, we can see Professor Allam when he came to Saudi, delivering a lecture in one of our international conferences. And as I said before, that nowadays Saudi's Vision 2030 supports different aspects of sustainable development. So it's really this facilitates sort of our path in this regard. Okay, actually, we have been trying to develop our university, which includes 4 main components. The first one is to green awareness. And the second one is to and the fourth one, greening campus. And they will be going through these components. Okay, let us tell you about made by our team to develop such a model. In 2017 and 2018, we were at that time, trying to developing, to develop the idea. And after that, we were, focusing on how to convince the top level in our university. It's not that easy to convince some people who are not familiar with this concept, especially, in some, contexts and some societies. Some, people, even if they are academics and, well-educated people, they actually don't understand very deeply the real meaning and the essential meaning of the sustainable development. So as I noticed, for example, in some contexts that many people understand sustainable development, sustainability to be, as if it was continuity. In Arabic, استمرارية, استدامة, استمرارية. So sustainability, if you are talking about sustainability, they might think that you are talking about continuity, just to keep something continuous. So at that time, really, it was not an easy task to convince people with this concept. But finally, there was actually a good success in this regard. In 2019, we developed the idea and tried to translate this idea into an initiative, to be an initiative. Then we prepared ourselves to launch the initiative, which is Qasim University as a sustainable university. 2020, we formed 4 subcommittees in each track of awareness and greening curricula, greening research, and also greening campus. And also, actually, we offered advisory sort of technical assistance to these subcommittees, because we have many experts in these 4 paths. In 2021, we have been able, successful in establishing 4 sub-initiatives and integrate these sub-initiatives in the university's strategy. So now, instead of having 1 initiative, now we have 4 initiatives in these 4 paths. And we have developed the ownership for each initiative with one of the university's vice presidents. Okay, just going very quickly with these 4 paths. First path is greening awareness to be institutionalized. This actually, we do believe that it's very important to have green philosophy, which is normative rather than positive, to make things function as it should be, rather than as it is. So it's this is very important when we are talking about green philosophy and normative approach and so on. And we remind ourselves with Indian wisdom, stating that we don't inherit the land of our fathers, but we pass it on to our children. The second component of this track is to have a green strategy. And as I said, that in our strategy now we have 4 initiatives in these 4 tracks. And also trying to have green policies. And as you might notice in this announcement, in this slide in Arabic, it's a sort of announcement of a lecture about sustainable production and consumption of food, trying to reduce the food waste and so on, made by one of our experts. The second one is the greening curricula. So trying to have green knowledge. So at the beginning, actually, we have diagnosed the status quo. So we determined the courses, including sustainability. And actually, we have noticed that some of our colleges actually teaching sustainable development in different ways, actually. Maybe in an integrated course. Sometimes it's called sustainable development course, which is very good. But we have 37 colleges. We have about 70,000 students, male and female. So actually, we have come up with a sort of a conclusion that so many, or big number of our students, male and female, they graduate from our university and they didn't hear a single word about sustainability. So this is why we set or determined the minimum level of education for sustainable development. And so we integrated one chapter in a compulsory course, which is Islamic culture, to make sure that each student, have sort of the basic, the most essential understanding of the sustainability concepts and implications and so on. So this is why we determine the minimum level, and we now are trying to develop this and to try to benefit from the interdisciplinary courses via the subcommittee which I mentioned before. The third path is a greening research, is to have a green mind. So we are trying actually to talk about green methodology. And of course, we, about 1 year, we developed this, what was called the research identity and R&D strategy. And we have been successful in making the focal point in our R&D strategy sustainability. So now the sustainability, this focal point, which is the sustainability, is really the heart of our research and R&D strategy in medicine and agriculture and business and economics as well. Also, under this track, we have been working hard to make sure that our labs and equipment are green as well. The fourth one is to, greening campus to be beautiful and efficient at the same time. So we've been trying to have sort of a master plan for sustainability. We formed sustainable executive.
Much time.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now I'm finishing. So sustainable executive committee And also we have developed sustainable development measurements. Okay, so this is the last slide that I have in my presentation, the way forward. Personally, I do believe that it's important to create sort of global ethical tribe, defend the earth, save biodiversity, and ethicalize, not rationalize, our growth and scientific endeavors, not to mention to ensure freedom, justice, and enough resources for future generations. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks, Professor Abdallah. As you say, Professor Abdallah exposed for us the experience of Qasim University in Saudi Arabia, and they will much things about how to have a sustainable university. I put one idea perhaps to discussion. It's about sustainability. When we talk in Arabic, it's استدامة استمرارية, but also تحمل. That's like if we can support it, because as I see, for example, of the hospital, that he must think to do to have something like this. But it's a great discussion about sustainability in our Arabic words. Thank you. And now we have the second speaker. Is Youssef Zaghwan Omar from Libya. It's associate prof and the chair University of Benghazi, European Asian Language, Faculty of Languages. He talks for us about the role of media literacy in teaching English classes at the Department of English at the Libyan University in post-pandemic coronavirus. Let me tell you one thing, perhaps. This day, it's, I don't know if you know that this day is the day of International Mother Language. And it was at 1999 UNESCO General Conference. And it's observed through the world since 2000, each 21 February. Then we know that all society are rainbow. After this, I give the mic of our friend, Professor Youssef Zaghwan. You can have the...
Okay, السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. رب يشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. السلام عليكم أيها الكرام. إن شاء الله تعالى I'm going today to talk about the role of media literacy in teaching English at the university level and departments of English at Libyan Public University in post-pandemic coronavirus. Before starting, just I don't know whether the PowerPoint is shown in front of you or not, but it's shown in front of me. So I'm going first to talk about
showing. Professor, can you make it bigger? أعمل big screen.
Full screen. So okay, so
يعني دوس full. لا down.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, full screen from beginning. Yeah.
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yes, perfect.
Yes. So, yeah, good. Yes. Yes, I'm going to talk about the teaching English at the university level in Libya and the era of technology and internet, coronavirus, and its effect education system in Libya shift to hybrid education. So we talk about teaching English, as you know that we are here in Libya, we teach English as a foreign language. It means that it's taught just only in schools. So we don't find people to talk English with when you go outside of the school. And when you talk about the teaching English at the level of the university, in fact, everything is dominated by teachers. So everything is done by teachers, what we call the teacher-centered. So just when the students sit as the spongy, they observe actually whatever given to them by teachers without even doing anything. Everything is dominated by the teacher. So the teacher, in fact, at the university level, questions and answers, asks answers, and talks almost 95% of the time of the class. So just only maybe 5% of the time maybe allotted for the students to talk, or to maybe just only a few time or little time to talk. Because of this traditional actually methods or strategy of teaching, in fact, we have got a lot of challenges regarding what's happening now in the, as we know that the whole world is dominated by, or let's say, invaded by the fatal virus, which is called coronavirus or COVID-19, that started in by the end of 2019. As we know that the world now is becoming a global village, let's say that maybe we can say a global tent, so that we can contact with each other easily, and what's happening in China, for example, might transfer to other parts of the world easily, and because of the globalization, because of the movement within one country to another country. So that's why the coronavirus actually moved rapidly as the fire does and as we did in the hot, or the spread. So we find actually ourselves in a bigger challenge because of the coronavirus, or because of our traditional way of strategy that we are using in teaching us. We are using the traditional way of teaching, which is lecturing, that's in the classroom. So after maybe 2 or 3 months of the spread of the coronavirus in the world, the universities and schools in Libya actually shut down completely. So and the study ceased for almost maybe 10 months or more than 10 months, because of actually we lack the use, so we didn't know, we are not familiar with using of technology at the university level, teaching at the university level. So actually we were in a bigger challenge whether to stop studying or to go to the internet, and which is actually are not familiar with. Of course, education system in Libya depends on traditional way of teaching, such as using traditional methods. We use at the university level, we use the grammar translation method, namely in the Department of English. At most best conditions, we use sometimes direct method, but we don't depend actually on technology or the internet. So lack of technology actually is dominating in our schools or our classes at the university. So we find ourselves that we are forced to go to what's called hybrid education, which that we mix online teaching with the face-to-face or traditional teaching in the classroom. So I'm going to talk about the stats of said English in Libya. As we said, that English is used as a foreign language, not a second language. And it's rare that you find native speakers to talk with in Libyan English, because of course, the two reasons. At the time of the Gaddafi, of course, everything was banned regarding English. And within these days, of course, you know that Libya, after 2011, we are because of the uprising. So it's very hard for foreigners to come to Libya because of the war and the conflicts between the people themselves. Also, when you talk about theories of learning, in fact, we focus on the all theories of learning that's based on the structuralism. So actually, Libyan students know about the language, but they don't know how to use the language. Another way we can say it's language knowledge rather than language use that's used at the university level in Libyan public universities. So it's actually, it has become a must that we have to shift to technology, namely to internet, to be a part of this globalized world, to make our students familiarize with the internet, to practice the language with native speakers. And in fact, that's what I'm doing now. I have a program that's Solia Connect program. That's I'm implementer of this program, connected with the American University, that to make students get used to language, because it's not just only matter to know about language, but it's a matter to know about the culture. That's because language, we say language is culture. So if you want to learn English or not to use English, we have to be aware of how people think, native speakers, how native speakers behave, and other things, of course, with the being restricted to our traditional language or native language Arabic, because it's our identity, but we have to know about language English. We have to use English, because English now is the lingua franca in the world, and we can never be part of this world without being aware of the English language. So regarding this, I am conducting a research or study about the use of media literacy and teaching English in English departments at the Libyan public universities. So for the methodology of the study, actually I conducted the qualitative research method, in which I interviewed the 20 participants from the 9 universities in Libya, in the east and the south and the west. So to ask them questions to get their experience about teaching online classes for students. For the problem of the study, as we know that because of the coronavirus, actually the most of the schools, or let's say all of the schools, universities actually were shut down and completely shut down, and the study was actually ceased. So students stay home and teachers, instructors stay home. So we find ourselves that helpless, do nothing to either to stop studying or to encounter such fatal virus by using technology, namely the internet. So I find that there's a problem that actually most of the instructors at the university level are unfamiliar with the using of the internet, using of the programs, that educational programs such as Zoom or Google Classroom or other education online programs that are used in the other world. So for the questions of the study, to get the conclusion and to get the findings and recommendations, I put forward some questions to be answered. That's what's the impact of the media literacy when teaching virtual classes, English classes. Or I put some questions for the objectives. Of course, this study actually remains highlighting the importance of using media literacy in teaching, and it highlights that we have to be part of this world through being involved in the digital society, what we call that, because the world now has become a digital society in which that dominates mainly by technology, let's say by the internet. So also for the participant of the study, as I said, that I interviewed 20 participants, instructors that teach at 9 universities in Libya. So I got actually 90 because as we know that in Libya we have maybe 20 universities, but because some of these universities don't have English departments, so my scope of the study is that about teaching English in English departments. So I'm focusing just only in English departments. So some of these universities don't have English departments or don't teach English. And some other universities that I cannot contact with some participants, though I talked with them, but maybe for some reason or not, we couldn't contact with one another. For the data collection, because I'm doing this research regarding media, so I use media for collecting the data. That's for the universities away from Benghazi. As for the participants in Benghazi, in fact, I interviewed the participant face-to-face. I recorded the interviews for the data analysis later. Of course, I didn't use real names. I didn't mention the universities in the data analysis. For the data analysis, I said that I took the interviews and transcribed the interviews. I use, of course, sometimes like phone calls and registered. Sometimes I use Zoom. Sometimes I use Facebook messengers. I use several types of media to get the data. So after the analyzing the data, actually I got the following findings. One of the actually most challenges that the participants encountered that regarding the electricity power. As we know that we are in a war, in fact, so the situation is not that good in in Libya in general, in Benghazi and Tripoli in specific, because of the power is sometimes goes off, maybe sometimes for the whole day, sometimes for maybe 10, 15 days. That's why I'm here. This is not my office. This is the Red Crescent. They hosted me because when I'm home, so maybe the power is off, electricity off. So most of times the electricity is off. So also the internet connection is not so easy to get. Sometimes the internet actually goes and comes, as I did here while I'm listening. Sometimes I find myself disconnected from the internet, so I have to refresh my computer to get access. Also, some participants say that the online classes, though sometimes it's a solution, but in fact, for maybe teaching other classes, but not English, because English, as we know, that it requires interaction actually, and when we talk actually, we don't talk language, but we talk paralinguistics, what we call. So English actually depends on the emotions and the facial expressions and the eye contact, other things. So actually such things actually are completely lacked in the online classes. Also, most of the instructors are unfamiliar with the educational programs that use such as Google or Google Classrooms, Zoom, and other. They are not familiar, and some of them they say that this is the first time that we use after the coronavirus. So it takes maybe them time to know about such educational programs. And till now, some of them are not using such media because they say that.
Thank you, our friend Youssef. As you say, your paper talk about approach some. I have three information. The effects of this new experience under COVID in Libya, and also under the situation that Libyan people live in now. And also the research, the qualitative research that you do, and also you give us in the last some findings and recommendations, like about the socioeconomic challenge, unaware of technology devices, lack of motivation, and also the problem to have internet connection. Then it's a big problem for the third world. Then we go to the, thank you, we go to the third intervention speakers. It's from Sudan. It's our friend Abdul Rauf Mohammed Adam. And Abdul Rauf Mohammed Adam is here, I think. No?
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me?
Marhaba. Mohammed Adam is from Darfur Training Committee, director of Darfur Training Committee, and he speak for us about higher education in MENA, Middle East and North Africa.
Yeah.
Challenge. You have the
a very good afternoon, everybody. And at the outset, I would like, on my own behalf and that of all the participants and audiences, to offer some words of thanks to Professor Allam and his honorable team for having us today in this prestigious conference, whose aim is to help MENA states achieve Agenda 2030. Development of higher education institutions has become both a global responsibility and a national imperative. Hence, we need to find out what opportunities and challenges are most likely to face social policy and decision makers in MENA states. And so I hope my address will have some practical policy implications. My object is therefore to highlight what I believe to be the major challenges and examine the current and possible solutions to MENA higher education institutions development problems. Then I start with the premises and the problem areas. Firstly, almost all MENA states suffer from a lack of robust education plans geared to addressing the root problems underlying higher education institutions. Their annual budgets allocate insufficient funds to the social service sector, including education, public health, and research and development. The approaches to solving higher education problems are faulty because despite a lack of a finance supporting system, they adopt expansionary plans. As you can see from the slide there, their annual budgets allocate insufficient funds to social service sector, including education and public health and research and development. And they and despite that, they adopt expansionary educational plans for their higher education institutions, including institutes and colleges. So the authorities get caught up in a trade-off quandary as they favor quantity over quality. The most vivid example here is the Sudan during the 1990s and up to 2018, a period which she saw exponential growth of higher education institutions. But a majority also of the Arab states have adopted expansionary plans, and recent survey in Arab states revealed shocking statistics that between 2003 and 2015, they expanded their higher education institutions from 233 to over 700, and that is a staggering 200.4%. And the irony is that expenditure on higher education institutions on scientific research is a mere 0.2 to 0.6 of GDP compared to between 2 and 4% in industrialized developed countries. The obvious effect is dearth of research output, a condition that reflects negatively in terms of impact on industry, innovation, and infrastructure. And this is shown here on table 1. It shows this worrying impact. If we look at the overall percentages in the last column, you will see that with the exception of King Abdulaziz University, almost all other MENA states scored nearly below 50%. The second problem, equally big and interrelated to the first, is to do with openness, which also affects the higher education institutions' world rankings. This is shown here in also table 2, which indicates that even a good university like King Abdulaziz University scored badly on openness rank and worldwide impact and excellence. The third major problem then, as emerged from tables 1 and 2, is that research and innovation linkages are not strong enough to make a worldwide impact. Dissatisfied researchers working in about 22 Arab states have attributed this to what they correctly believe is the environment that does not support doing science. But also by and large, recent surveys highlight a series of major challenges facing scientific research. And these include 1, underfunding of scientific research. 2, low output of scientific research and publications and patents in particular. 3, graduate students produce scientific research that fails to address the mundane socioeconomic problems of the Arab world. 4th, collaboration between MENA higher education institutions is lacking in terms of information exchange, experience, and joint research publications. 5th, poor linkages between scientific research and national development sustainable plans. 6, too little incentives for innovation and entrepreneurship cast dark shadows on motivation. 7th, and probably most importantly, that the governance system of many MENA higher education institutions lack full autonomy. And another important survey traced these problems down to pre-university education. One survey on GCC countries' schools revealed findings pointing to student underachievement in both mathematics and sciences. Such low learning outcomes among students would seriously hamper the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia's efforts aimed at joining the so-called world-class university club. The gravity of the problem will be presently clear as we look at the figures shown on table 3 here. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, you can.
On table 3, which compares learning outcomes for Saudi students to OECD averages. You can see that the Saudi students' scores are low or lower than those of OECD students by almost 100 points. Now, despite these problems, Saudi Arabia has to some extent delivered on its pledges to excel among other MENA states. And at least 2 of its universities are now on the top of the Arab world higher education institutions. And according to the Times Higher Education rankings of 10 universities, as shown on table 4 here. Such results have emboldened the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia as it strives hard to join the highly prestigious world-class university club. We need to have a look at the major features of this world-class university model in order to see if the pledges made on the part of policy and decision makers of Saudi Arabia to catapult at least 2 Saudi universities into the top 200 universities in the Arab, into the top world rankings. Let us look at this model propounded by Lee J, as shown in figure 1 here. This is a model of world-class university model or a concept. And a cursory look into this model reveals that an array of factors would act as bottlenecks for all MENA states, not only Saudi Arabia. The chief hurdle lies with the governance system. As you can see it below here, the governance system that lacks institutional autonomy. And related to this is the inadequate openness or internationalization. You can see it from the top there, down number 2 on column number 1. This internationalization, which we referred to earlier. And this is due to micro-level internal tensions and these structural disadvantages, which are major barriers to global competitiveness. The recommended solutions are displayed on the last column here. You can see them in the last column in this figure on what can be done, and which I hope must be given serious considerations on the part of decision makers and educational planning authorities. And to conclude then, it appears that ascendance of MENA higher education institutions to world-class universities in general would prove to be a tall order unless the chief problems enumerated earlier are squarely and promptly addressed. In the higher education institutions, prospective researchers and scholars would require more intensive training and in methods and techniques of research and teaching these methods as a stepping stone to practical work and public service. Secondly, experience tends to indicate that severance of higher education institutions from the status control of their economic, social, and cultural activities is key to resolving the underlying problems. I would venture to forcibly argue that universities, rather than the state, must have the upper hand in restructuring society on the basis of knowledge. And for this to bear fruit, however, it is incumbent upon MENA states in general to approach changes into their higher education institutions with a new cultural outlook. And now I would like to round up my speech with hopefully some enlightened recommendations. And with these recommendations, we advise to note that there is no one size fits all as far as MENA states are concerned. Each has its own specific problems and priorities and must therefore feel free to select the points it deems relevant. Number one, recommendation number one, MENA states must develop realistic targets and strategies for developing public and private higher education institutions with a detailed allocation of their scarce scientific and technological resources. Number two, the limited financial resources would better be earmarked for improvement and capacity building of pre-existing higher education institutions rather than following the present costly expansionary policies. Number three, research requirement priorities should be rescheduled to match the pressing national needs, whether the latter are sending students on scholarship overseas, teacher training, or importation of research results carried out abroad. Number four, the incessant drive towards building world-class universities seems to be motivated by a desire to achieve national prestige. Were this to be true, then the state must balance this objective with equally important aims aims of sustaining economic development and growth and public welfare. Trade-off between these major aims could prove too costly. Number five, research and development programs must give more emphasis on innovation and offer lucrative incentives for entrepreneurship as a stimulus for researchers and graduates to reach out to the marketplace. The labor market is likely to respond more positively to new graduates once competence is shown. This in turn would relieve the chronic problems of graduate unemployment. Number six, a reliable patenting system is badly needed to support innovation and research and development.
Your recommendation in discussion, if you can.
Number 7, the recommendation number 7 is the collaboration between MENA higher education institutions through prompt and timely share of information, and the rising stock of knowledge must be encouraged and boosted, as this is more likely to ease accessibility to information and reduce costs. Number 8, for the purposes of number 7 above, we would recommend that a MENA information network be built as a regional pool accessible to all member states. Alongside this, every member country should introduce improvements to its existing higher education institutions and maintain its national research and development inventory for its own use and for that of the rest of the MENA states. And finally, a recommendation by the World Bank and OECD joint panel to the government of Egypt 10 years earlier still holds relevance today and should be reiterated for all MENA states. It is recommended that MENA states should adopt a holistic approach to raising educational quality and effectiveness that would focus on learning outcomes in terms of the capabilities that graduates will need in a changing world for life, work, and further learning. B, integrate research into university education, especially in graduate schools. C, involve government agencies and institutions accepting shared responsibility for raising the standards of educational inputs, processes, and outputs in consultation with employers and in the context of a strategic approach to internationalization. Thanking you very much.
Thank you, Professor Abdul Raouf Mohammed Adam. As you say, Prof. Mohammed Adam talk with us about the ranking, but the big idea it's that we have much question about the system of ranking because we have much system. And I think I refer to the publication of UNESCO in 230 rankings and accountability in higher education uses and misuses. In this book that UNESCO together with Organization of Economic and Cooperation and Development and the World Bank organized the Global Forum of Ranking and Accountability in Higher Education. And the forum reconfirmed the fact that the advent of mass higher education and proliferation of new institutional models in the sector over recent decades has resulted in welcome and unprecedented expansion of access and choice in supply, while at the same time raising a question over the validity, sex, and quality of provision. Then it's to include student, researcher, teacher, policymakers, and I think in ranking system all time, policy social is not haven't visibility. And I think it's big problem about to refer of ranking, international ranking to give classification of university. It's one question that many pedagogic research not agree and we have much conflict. And I give the floor of my friend Angie, Professor Angie, to give us the questions that she collected, and we can go after for the answers and also of general debates if we have time.
Thank you so much.
You have the floor, Angie.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abdel Fattah, and all the colleagues who have made this session very informative one and very insightful. Thank you for your presentations and for all the details that you have provided us, whether related to your models in applying sustainability or related to the different approaches in order to improve the ranking and the different, let's say, research practices or best practices within the MENA region. To sum up, as a rapporteur, I have to sum up all the presentations, and then go on with some questions. So first of all, we had the presentation of Dr. Abdullah from Al-Qasim University, who started with introducing an education for sustainability system, for sustainable development system. He talked about the sustainable university. He talked about applications that they have implemented within Al-Qasim University, starting from having a philosophy, then a strategy, then applying that sustainable development process at different levels and applying it, whether related to the curriculum, till he took us to the part related to having a green building. And we really enjoyed all the, let's say, the philosophy, the strategy, and the approach presented by Dr. Abdullah about their way and their model in order to implement and to practice and to apply the concept of sustainable development as part of the educational process. Also, through the second presentation, we had a nice presentation also related to how to apply the concept of sustainability, but in a very particular concept. They talked about how to utilize English, or to, let's say, focus it on teaching English within specific universities in Libya. And he compared that pre-COVID and post-COVID, and he listed down a set of challenges in relation to teaching English. One of these challenges is the lack of motivation of students. It's the infrastructure, the struggle in relation to utilizing internet, and maybe the overall educational system, which is moving from the classical approach to the new normal, which is the new, and that shift towards the hybrid approach, which made everyone struggling, not only students, maybe the overall system kind of struggling and panicking in going with that. And we close it with the presentation and taking us all over the MENA region, where Dr. Abdul Rauf, he presented the different ranking of different universities across the MENA, talking about what are the criteria and the indicators in order to make this classification. And he proposed at the end some kind of recommendations in order to improve maybe the, let's say, the ranking, the classification of these universities within the MENA region. One of them is to have a good infrastructure for that, is to have more emphasis on the intended learning outcomes, to have more emphasis maybe on the research, and to be well prepared to set logical, or let's say rational and realistic target to do so. And so to think about innovation, to think about entrepreneurship. All of these are things and recommendations proposed by our last speaker, who is Dr. Abdul Rauf Mai. After summing up as reporter of all the presentations and the sessions.
Please, Professor Angie, if you can give us the question.
Yeah. So far, I have a question, because I cannot see questions here coming from the chat. If anyone from the audience is more than welcome to ask a question, if they do have any questions, I might open the question session by my question to our first speaker, Dr. Abdullah, he talked about the educational for sustainable development, and he talked about a strategy. And I would like to ask him about what was your strategy to involve the faculty member within this educational model? What did you do to get their contribution, whether related to curriculum or related to any other aspect related to your educational sustainable system? This is my question. And of course, the floor is open to anyone from our, let's say, attendees to ask our guest speakers any questions. And they will be happy to forward the questions to the speakers. Yes.
Okay. Waiting to have some questions from from participants. I can I put before 2 questions about the explanation of our friend Abdullah Al-Buridi about sustainability, استمرارية استدامة وتحمل, that we have big confusion when we translate it in Arabic, and we talk only about to continue, not to support, and also about our friend Abdul Rauf, this problem of uses and misuses of ranking university. If Mr. Abdullah can give us some idea, waiting if our friend Angie can have some questions.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for this good question. Actually, we have encouraged our faculty and our colleagues, in administrative departments as well as our students, male and female, to participate in the execution of our sub-initiatives. For example, regarding the initiative of raising awareness and sustainability, we have sort of regular lectures made by our scholars and experts in different aspects of sustainability. Also, we have been participating in exhibitions, for example, at the local level and the national level as well, to raise the awareness in this regard. For the second path, which is curricula, we have designed a sort of electronic link to make our colleagues to suggest how to integrate sustainability concepts and applications and so on in our educational programs, postgraduate and undergraduate as well. For our research, we have set sort of research priorities focusing on sustainability, especially taking into account the local needs in our region, which is Al Qasim. So now we have done a lot of sort of empirical and action research within this context, within the sustainable context. For the greening campus, actually, 2 years ago we formed a committee, and also open and making our colleagues having open room to give us any idea. For example, one of the colleagues focusing on the usage of smart, for example, gates, and
you'll be shortly because we haven't so much time.
Yeah, he gave us sort of a nice proposal for this. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. And for Mr. Abdul Adam, what is about Rankin University?
Yeah, thank you very much. The rankings which are done by this very, very prestigious and well-qualified and experienced researchers helping the Times Higher Education produce these annual rankings, do a lot of help to the our local universities and national and higher educational institutions in general, because otherwise they would have to depend on their own local or internal staff to do the internal assessment of the outputs of the universities. And sometimes we don't have the qualified personnel who can do it as professionally as the OECD or the Webometrics or the higher educational institutions. I mean the Times Higher Education institution. I mean higher education rankings by the Times Higher Education. And for example, if we look at the SDGs, which is a focus on is SDG number 9 and also SDG number 4. And the rankings of the SDG number 9, which are to do with industry, innovation, and infrastructure, according to their methodology, their rankings focus on the university's role of fostering innovation and serving the needs of industry. And it also explores the institution's research on industry and innovation, their number of patents and spin-off companies, and their research income from industry. And they use a very strict metric system to assign percentages to, for example, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. They assign that one about 11.6%, and they assign patents about 15.4%, and they assign the number of university spin-offs about 34.6%.
You can do it shortly, please.
Yes, and okay, and by the way, the university spin-offs, they defined it as registered companies set up to exploit intellectual property that has originated from within the institution. They must have been established at least 3 years ago and still be active. And the data were also provided directly by universities and normalized across a range, the range of using Z scoring. So these are the methods the Times Higher Education prepares these rankings, and also probably they do the same with SDG number 4.
Thank you.
Which has also its own methodology. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. And you have some questions now?
I have a question, and I can see also Professor Allam raising his hand if he would like to say something. I have a question in here, which is basically about the universities in KSA in Saudi Arabia. So in here I have a question: what are the key success factors for KSA universities which other in the MENA region failed to do? Maybe this question is related to the presentation of Dr. Abdel Raouf, but maybe also I can ask Dr. Abdullah about this, because he's part of the, let's say, the educational system in Saudi Arabia. And he can also maybe give us an illustration, what are the things that, or the key success factors for Saudian universities compared to other universities in the MENA region that made them on the top of the ranking as presented by Dr. Abdel Raouf in the presentation, which are highly ranked compared to other universities.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, Mr. Abdullah, you can give us some short answer.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, I think Saudi universities have very good governmental financial support, which is one of their advantages. But you know, money is not enough. It's not good enough. So you have to be smart to have sort of institutional development. So the Ministry of Education at present has asked Saudi universities, for example, to have R&D strategy. So because in the past, you know, because we have adopted the concept of comprehensive university. So every university, you know, is doing a lot of research in different fields and so on. So the Ministry of Education says, no, this is not good for us. So you have to focus on some priorities, taking into account the sustainable advantages of your local region. So actually such you know, sort of a new philosophy, I think will encourage Saudi, you know, universities to have sort of a better international position in the near future.
Thank you. Professor Ali.
Yes, Ms. Angie.
Because Professor Allam is raising his hand.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe just a quick question following up the question you just asked. I think most of you, or maybe all of you, familiar with the MENA region. You can realize from the statistic Dr. Abdul Rauf presented, and I also have seen this for the last 3 years. Strange, or not strange, but very observation need to be really looked at. Number one, very old universities like Cairo, Khartoum University, and those universities, they are not in the top 10 universities. If you look at Egypt, for example, the 2 universities in the last couple of years cited are much newer compared to Cairo University. If you also look to the region overall, like Qatar University or UAE universities, they are not very old universities. They are ranking very high compared to the whole world, not just within the region. That's my first observation. My second observation, the history of universities or higher education in the region, the 2 oldest universities, one is in Egypt, which is Al-Azhar, and the other one I think is in Tunisia, one I think.
Yeah.
We hardly hear about them. Very old universities, the first 2 universities. So what is happening in why these very old universities? Also, Kuwait University is a very old one. Many professors I met in the region, they said they have graduated originally from Kuwait University. So it's a very old university, but they are not featured high. I'm not sure anyone can offer any response here. Why these very old, well-established universities, we no longer see them in the high ranking in the region?
Can I comment in here, Professor Ala?
Yes, of course.
I might comment in here because I have worked in different universities in different places in MENA, and maybe that's why I might be able to comment on this point. So I worked in Tunisia. Basically, I'm coming from there, and then I'm the GCC countries. And for why these top universities, they are not ranked. This is, first of all, because some universities, they didn't enter into the culture of ranking. Some of them, they didn't even apply for these kind of ranking systems or ranking programs. That's why they are not appearing and they are not there. This is one of the reasons. Second, maybe some of the criteria which are selected by the ranking systems, actually, which are well known, whether related to QS ranking or AACSB or whatever, these, let's say, some institutions, they are they didn't align themselves to the new and trendy criteria which are required by these educational systems. And that's why we cannot see them among the top ranked universities. Some universities in MENA region, they are doing very well, they are operating very well, but they are doing research, their faculty members. However, it's really done according to the classical approach. It's not according to the new requirements which are imposed by these ranking bodies. And that's why we can see a lot of highly recognized, let's say, universities, and which are high quality universities. One of them is mine, but it is not out among the top universities, although it's really known as a top based on the output and the produced graduate of these, let's say, of the students. However, as I said, they are not there because of, maybe it's a matter of culture, it's a matter of awareness. It's not really, they are not only fully aware about this. Some universities, they prefer to be out of this competition. They don't want it to be there. So they don't want it to, and they don't have maybe the, let's say, the overall approach or the system that would allow them to enter into that competition. Maybe these are some reasons to explain somehow why some well-known universities, old universities, they are not part or they are not among the list of highly ranked universities in Arab region or in the MENA region.
Yeah. Okay. May I also add to this?
Please. I give you floor, but I want to ask, as I see this day is the International Mother Language Day, and our friend from Libya talking about this experience with English language. I don't know if he can give us comparative approach by language on the language situation in Libya.
Shall I talk about the first thing that I'm terribly sorry for the disconnection of the internet, and this is one of the best examples that the things that we suffer here in Libya. In fact, the power goes maybe sometimes for 15 hours, sometimes for the whole day, and the disconnection of the internet sometimes goes, sometimes comes. it's horrible here, the situation. That's why I think such as some universities actually don't apply the virtual online teaching. They say that it's useless. So they try to shorten the course. They are decreasing the material, decreasing other things at the expense of the quality. So that's only the 1 semester, that's 4 months. They teach just only for 2 weeks, that's it. And they give the short material, and students, most of the students actually got A's for the class because it's short material, and they give exams and they give tests. So actually we have suffered a lot. The other thing is that for the universities here in Libya, actually they don't subscribe for the officially for the educational programs. That's why, for example, for the Zoom, it's limited time. So if you wanted to give a class, for example, lecture through the Zoom, so you have 40 minutes or 30 minutes, not more. And the number of the students less than 20 or maybe 30, that's the most. So actually other things that for the social, we know that we are maybe the same situation that's in Saudi Arabia. That's girls actually are shy, maybe are forbidden to be in the camera. So as we know that the English classes, namely, it requires that interaction. So some girls said, no, we don't want to be in the camera because of the social norms that we have in Libya. It's not good that for girls to be shown in the camera or other things. The economic, actually, this is one of the challenges that we encountered, that most of the instructors don't have the money to buy laptops, for example, to buy, let's say, technological devices that go with the digital society now. You need the upgraded kinds of laptops, upgraded kinds of technological devices. I think we are behind the times because ourselves, we need to change, in fact, in our mentality to be part of this in this globalized world. We have to work. Maybe we say that the distance of 1,000 miles starts with the base. That's what we are doing nowadays. We start, though we have got a lot of challenges, we've got a lot of obstacles, but by the end, we hope that someday we can be part of this globalized world, or we say digital society.
Thank you, Professor Youssef Omar from Libya.
Thank you.
We have some questions. If our friend Professor Allam can, we have time, Professor Allam?
I think we're running out of time.
Okay. Then it's so late. Then I do a conclusion for our session. Then I think we must be more innovative and more efficient in our innovation and creativity in teaching and research and education. These things can only be possible with academic community, as I see, and freedom of opinion with funding based on a proactive policy. And also I tell for my friend, and we can have discussion if he wants, that from our friend Abdul Rauf, that Sarah is Moroccan. We must know this. And I give the floor for my friend Allam, and I thank you for all, and see you later.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor and Doctor. I think we should applaud for them because I think they did very well. I think the topic was discussed, all of you, thank you very much, was extremely important. And Professor Marcus, if you would like, I don't want to put you on the spotlight, but I think this is quite a huge issue in the Middle East now about universities ranking, and you have listened, I think, in the last 3 of them. Do you like to, I know we are running out of time, but I think it will be very useful to listen to someone like you, any reflection of what you have seen so far from this issue about ranking?
Yeah, just 2 things from me. One is I thought that was a splendid session. I really enjoyed all of the talks. They were really, really interesting. And it was interesting that some of the topics were exactly the same ones you're grappling with no matter where your university is. But on university rankings, I think they are helpful, but you have to be very careful at interpreting them because they tell you some things and they then mislead you on others. So my philosophy is to use them, but use them judiciously and carefully. But the more fundamental question, which Dr. Adam raised, is a very important one, which is how much do you want to spend on higher education as a fraction of GDP, and what is the most effective use of that money? And it isn't necessarily just creating more and more universities. So I think that's the fundamental question, and using rankings to help you understand that, but not be completely dominated by them, is important. And I think there was a lot of interesting questions in there, and there's no right or wrong answer.
Thank you very much, Professor. Thank you.
So please remember, if we all help and do a little bit, it will make a big difference.